Well, you know what they say, for every yin there is a yang. And on this week's episode, I'm talking Microsoft Intune and Automox, two products that are just destined to be together. Stand by for a deep dive. Hey everyone, great to see you. Andy here. Nice to have you back with me once again. On this week's episode, I'm talking great partnerships. We've seen it before with Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock and Forrest Gump and Jenny. They're meant to be just like peas and carrots. And this time, it's the turn of Microsoft Intune and Automox. I was originally tasked with comparing these two products, but I've definitely come to the conclusion that they are much better together. And this time, we're going to take a deep dive and I'm going to show you all of the comparisons and where they complement each other perfectly. Now, if you haven't subscribed, I'd love to have you on board. So bump the subscribe button up there, ring that bell, and come and join my learning community. And if you have any questions or comments about this or any of my sessions, of course, get those down below. So I think without any further ado, let's jump in and take a look at Microsoft Intune and Automox, a partnership, it would appear, that's made in heaven. So just getting started then, I'm currently using an E5 subscription with Microsoft 365, and I'm using EMNS, so Enterprise Mobility and Security, which means I do have Intune licenses. Now, I'm going to come down here into Identity. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to come into my devices and all of my devices here. Now, you'll notice here that I've got a number of different machines and all of these are in, they're kind of in hybrid mode at the moment. So the other thing that you'll notice is that some of these machines are actually servers as well. And this is something that you can't manage in Intune at the moment. You can't manage servers, it's just for clients. Now, whether this may change in time, I'm not sure, but this is definitely something that Automox does support. So what I want to do is just show you a number of these clients. So again, we're in hybrid. One of the downsides of hybrid is that you can't manage the device in Intune. Obviously, it needs to be Entra ID joined, but also the user needs to have an Intune license. So again, you can see the management capabilities of this device, it's just not there. So in comparison, you can see I've got another machine here, and this is WS2, and you can see that this one is actually Entra joined. So it's directly joined and it's managed in Entra ID, but in addition, Aaron here, my user, does have a license. So I can click into this device and you'll notice that I do have the capabilities to manage this device. Now, the first thing that people ask is, okay, how do I get kind of started? Well, one of the first things that we need to do, of course, is we need to download the agent or get the devices on board. So that's one of the good things about Entra ID. The only thing that you need to do here is essentially I would go into the user account, I would assign that user a license, and let me just do this. So I'm going to come into my users, and here in active users, I'm going to come down and you can see that I've got a user here called Aaron. So what I've gone ahead and done is I've gone ahead and assigned Aaron a E5 license, and he also has an Intune license, of course. So he's all been activated and he's ready to go, which means that that device is not only Entra ID joined, but it's also now managed in Intune fully as well. So in comparison, I'm flipping over to one of my client machines here. So I'm going to come into my Automox, and the first thing we need to do is, of course, is quickly start a trial. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So it's just asking me for an email address here, and in this case, I'm just using a demo account. So obviously, I agree to the license, and I'm going to try the product itself, and again, which is perfect. Now, what I'm going to do here, folks, just to give you an idea of the portal, I've actually got two Automox portals. So this one is just completely standalone for my environment here, and then I've got another one that I'm going to show you with lots of goodies and stuff in it. So pretty simple process. Just go ahead and sign up, and then you're good to go. So once you've gone through the sign up process, you simply click on Get Started, and this is where it's super simple. Now, again, I just go ahead and log in. There is two-factor authentication here, so I'll need to go ahead and do that, which again is a nice additional set of security. Now, this is interesting, and you can see it's now saying, hey, you've logged in with a brand new machine, and the first thing you'll need to do is quickly download and install it, and this just takes a few moments. Okay, so installing the installer, it will ask you for an access key. So I quickly copy the access key here and then go back to the installer, and you're pretty much good to go. And again, this particular piece of software is for Windows. Of course, if you're using Mac, Linux, the experience is similar as well. Right, so once you've done that, the next thing we want to do is obviously we want to scan for potential updates. So, and this is really nice. So out of the box, very smooth. It will scan if there's any kind of updates missing from this device. So the scan is complete. It's looking pretty good. And then next it says, okay, we now recommend that you create a group. So what is a group? And how do they compare then with Microsoft Intune? So here in Intune, I'm going to come into my groups. One thing I really like about this interface is that users and groups are directly from Entra ID. So, and they've kind of put shortcuts in the portal, so you don't need to jump portals. So that's a really plus there for Microsoft. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to create a new group, and you can call it a security group, or you can have a Microsoft 365 group. In this case, I'm going to choose a security group because I want devices. And I'm just going to call this my devices 2. So devices 2. And again, it can either be assigned, or in this case, I'm going to use a dynamic device. Now, it's good practice to also put in a group owner. So in this case, I'm just going to put my mod user in here as the owner of the group. Again, you can, maybe this could be a team, a support desk or something. And I'm now going to create a dynamic query. And this query, I'm going to choose a property. So I'm going to say display name, and I'm going to make it just simple. Starts with, and of course, Seattle. So I'll just say SEA. So any devices that start with SEA will automatically be a member of that group. So first things you need to do in Intune is you need to create the group. Now, what can you do with that group? So the next step is if I come up to devices, well, once you've created the group with the devices, then you can obviously do any configuration. And it's typically good practice to configuration policies, compliance policies, conditional access policies, any kind of scripts. You then essentially do the configuration and basically add that to the group. So you create the policy, so whichever policy you're trying to create. So ultimately you choose the template. So in this case, I'm going to select the platform. Once you've selected the policy, you can select the template and then just choose the template. So in this case, device restrictions. Give the template a name, so I'll just call this demo. And we would then go through and do all the configuration settings, all the restrictions, and then finally you would select the group to assign that. And that's pretty much how they do it in Intune. Now also, as well as managing devices and deploying software, the other thing that we need to think about, of course, are updates. So updates here, typically we manage them in rings. And it's a good idea the way that Microsoft do this. We have feature updates, of course, and feature updates are, those updates that are nice to have. whereas quality updates are the ones that you really do need to have. And the difference between them is that feature updates, you can, if you were deploying to thousands of machines, you might not want to push them out all together. You could push them out in waves, if you will, and Microsoft call these rings. And those rings, by the way, you can assign to different groups within your organization, different departments, and typically where this is where groups come into. Now, the good thing is you've got feature updates, quality updates, you've got driver updates. The one thing that's missing here is software updates. So you would need to go into apps, and this is a different kind of portal. Again, not so good from the Intune perspective, the fact that you've got to jump around a little bit. So how does that experience then compare with Automox? Okay, so I'm going to come back in here. I'm going to create a group. I'll just call this my, in fact, I'll call it Corp. So my Corp devices, and I'm going to click on Create. Okay, so at this point, this is kind of cool. It just gives me an overview of the group creation and what's involved. If I just close that information page down. So here in the edit group page, you can see that we have a parent group. So when you create a new group, you can use another group as a parent. So you can have kind of almost like subgroups. And that might be quite useful if you've got different departments at a particular site or location. Okay, so in terms of updates, so where do you want the updates to come from? So do you want to just keep the devices setting? Do you want to disable or enable automatic updates? So again, I'm going to go ahead and choose that. And it says, where's the update source from? And I'll just keep the devices setting here. The other thing that you now want to do, of course, is assign those devices. So in this case, I've got a single device here. This is my client number 1, and I'm going to assign this now to this particular device group. And you can see right away it was done. So it shows me that it's been recently added. It also shows me if there are any scheduled updates. Now at this point, I've not updated anything, but I'm just going to refresh those settings here. Okay, so now that I've done that, you can see just a quick overview. It's created the group. So I've got this group called Corp. You can see that I've now got a device in it, and it's pretty much ready to go. So there we go. I have now created a group. So after just bringing the device onto the network and we joined the group, I talked about applying configuration policies to that group in Intune. Now, configuration policies you would definitely do in Intune, whereas here, this deals with the security, the patching, the updating of devices. And it's not just Windows devices, of course, it's all your different types of devices. And this is what I love, the fact that it's telling you, look, your system is unprotected out of the box. Now, to get to this kind of level, this is where you would need Defender for Endpoint. So you would needed to deploy the Defender for Endpoint client. Then, of course, you would go back in here. It would tell you your weaknesses. Again, there's a lot of hoops that you would need to jump through to get the same kind of experience here. So this is what I really like. The fact is I can just scroll down. I can go in and view the details about all the different patches that are available. And you can see that it's all of them here. And I could just say, hey, look, I want to go and patch my device. So again, just a single click. So right away, I want to apply the patches. Do you want to apply only critical patches? Or do you want to actually create your own kind of filter here? So it's giving you the choice. And for the purpose of this demo, I'm simply going to go ahead and deploy all the patches. Now, when we say all the patches, this can include not just OS patches, it can also include driver patches, updates, and so on. So there we go. With a single click, our device is protected. So looking at a comparison of the two interfaces, We do have the dashboard view, and this is a nice kind of clean overview. It's perhaps a little too clean for me. I come from the days of operations manager. When we were in a data center or in the tech team, we would have a huge monitor on the wall, and at a glance we would see graphically how everything was looking. It was kind of this nice helicopter overview. Whereas here, it's a bit kind of, you've got to kind of customize it a little bit. What Intune is absolutely fantastic at is onboarding devices. So I've got to say some of the enrollment tools here are absolutely fantastic. So things like autopilot, I absolutely love that. And things like co-management as well. So if you're working with that hybrid environment, again, fantastic. Again, where you would use Intune, you would definitely use Intune for those configuration policies, and as well as things like compliance policies as well. We also have the capabilities for scripts and remediation, although I will say this product tends to focus more on the Windows solutions. Okay, so now that we've created our device groups, the next thing we want to do is obviously protect them. So here you can see that we have 4 available updates. At the moment though, we've not created a policy, so just like kind of Intune, you would go ahead and create a policy as well. The one thing I will show you this, and I have another tenant that I'll show you in a moment, you do get a nice helicopter overview of all of your different platforms. And this is something that you can imagine just being on a big screen in a data center there. So at a glance, I can see how many patches, how many updates there are. So the first thing that you want to do is obviously I want to create a new policy in order to push that update out. So I'm going to simply click on new policy, and one of the things I find about this interface is I've not really used this that much, but as a new user you can see how easy it is to get going. So I can choose whether do you want to just patch everything, do you want to do security updates, do you want to create just a patching update only? Do you want to do something that requires a manual approval? So again, if you work in a sensitive environment, you might want to kind of say, do you want to approve a particular update and so on. You can do a patch all accept, of course, and then you can do a custom one or advanced solution here. So in essence, you can choose the template, then you can choose a different policy based on the OSs that you're using. You can also create a worklet. Now, a worklet is essentially a scripted solution, and I'll come back to that in a moment. So for this demo, I'm just going to go ahead. I'm only using one machine, so I'm just going to say, yep, I want to create a policy for patch all. So I'll just give this policy a name, and I'll call this policy all. Again, it says what kind of policy status. So I'm going to say, yes, I want to be active at the moment. One of the first things that you're going to want to do, though, is you're going to want to associate this with a group. And you can see here is that corp group that I created earlier, and there's one device associated with that. So again, I can add some notes in here as well. You can also target the specific device within that group, and you can specify, hey, when do you want to actually push this or schedule these updates to go out. So again, you can just say you want to do a schedule start. So I can just say select all, so every month. And basically you can say, I just want it to go out, let's say on a Monday, a Wednesday and a Friday. So you could do that. You could also set a particular time, of course. And I can then scroll down. You can set user notifications, don't require the updates, don't restart a PC, and you've got all of those kind of options there as well. Likewise, you can also install do not restart notification message or no restart, so you can push that message out to your users. I really like that, by the way, that you can actually notify the users. That can save so many headaches. Then you've got things like, do you want to defer any updates? So do you want to give the user the option to defer potential updates? Again, you don't need to do that. And again, you can also set notification as well. Now, bearing in mind that the scans that we talk about are not just software updates, or OS updates rather, it's also software as well. So once you've done that, I've associated it with a group. You simply now just go ahead and you create that policy, and that policy is now created. So once the policy is done, that's it. Off it goes, and it will then take care of itself, and it will run it at a regular basis for you. So that being that, let's now go back to the dashboard, and let's now take a look at the device properties themselves. So I'm coming into Microsoft Intune here, and I'm going to come into my devices and into my Windows devices. And in this example, this particular tenant, I've only got one particular device here. But I've got Aaron Nichols, and you can see that this device is completely managed in Intune. I can see the owner, I can see the details, I can see whether the device is compliant against any device rules that we've created. I can also scroll down and look at the properties of the device as well. So this may include hardware, software. So the one thing that it doesn't tell me here is it doesn't tell me what missing patches I have. You would need to use Defender for that, which is again a bit of an add-on. So again, one little annoyance is that here in the device properties, you can't do any kind of remote management. For this, unfortunately, you would need to add on the Intune suite. Now, in comparison to that, what we can do is we can come over here to Automox. And here in Automox, you can see I've got my dashboard. I can go into my devices here. And in my devices, it doesn't just show me Windows clients, but I can also see servers, clients, Linux, Mac OS, and so on. And again, at any stage, I can go into these devices. I can look at the properties either here, or I can go in through the devices menu. And again, you can see you get that complete breakdown of that device. So if the device is online, if it's offline, I really like this. But for me, a real game changer is the fact that Automox has remote management features, and you don't need that additional license for. You can also enable the request mode from the user. So again, depending on your organization, you may or may not require permission from the user to connect to their machine. So you just initiate the client, and what I'll do is I'll just quickly flip over to the other client, and I'll show you what the experience is like here. So the client receives a message, do you wish to allow the connection from the admin? And I just quickly go, yes, that's fine, I'm going to proceed. If I switch back now to my server, you can now see that the remote desktop session is initiating, and I now have my desktop. Just takes a second, and there we go. I'm just going to click allow, and we now have full remote management capabilities included in the cost. And for me, that's an absolute win-win. So obviously we can manage the device, you can assist the user, answer their questions, and of course at the end of the session, once you're happy that the customer's satisfied, I can simply just then disconnect the session. So there we have it, the remote management feature from Automox. Absolutely brilliant. In terms of troubleshooting, we also get things like you can do bulk action updates as well. So in this case, there's a whole bunch of patches, and again, not just the software, but also app software that might need updated as well. So I can very quickly just say, hey, I want to go up, do I want to patch, ignore, or defer these updates? So I can just go, yep, just go ahead, patch these devices now for me. So this is absolutely great. And I gotta say that the remote desktop functionality is just absolutely sweet. Now I have to admit that one way that Automox definitely complements Intune is in its scripting and automation. So if I come down to devices here, and in devices, we have got options to, for example, create policies and policy sets, but we also have scripting and remediations here. So with remediations or platform scripts, you can come in and of course you can add scripts for your different platforms. The downside though is natively it doesn't have any scripts built in. So we compare this then with Automox. If you come into the worklets area here, this is a catalog of over 350 PC, Mac OS and Linux scripts that will do absolutely everything. So not just checking for vulnerabilities, but also deploy software and also various configuration settings as well. Let's have a look at it in action. So in terms of actually using the scripts, they're super simple. It's just a case of going in and altering the variables that meet your environment. And there are also prerequisites that need to be made, but these are quite clear. So once you've created the script, you can see it gives you a full description. As I said, all you simply need to do is adjust the variables in it. And as you can see, if you need help, there is our friendly robot standing by who's more than happy to help you. So once you've created the script, essentially it's a case of scheduling it. So when do you want it to be scheduled? And do you want to put any user notifications that they're going to have a script being run? And also, of course, you want to associate it with a particular group. And that's pretty much it. It's very, very simple. It's superbly documented. And in my opinion, it's a definite big feature in Automox. And lastly, I want to talk about the reporting capabilities of Intune and how it compares with Automox, and indeed how Automox complements Intune in terms of reporting. So I'm going to come into the Intune Admin Center here, and you can see I've got a number of different available reports here. So things like device compliance, device configuration, I can click in here and I can pull a report. I can go in and I can get for example, a summary of a report. Now, in this example, I've only got a couple of devices, and it's taking a little bit of time to kind of produce that report. If you're using group policy and you're importing group policy, you also get a group policy analytics. You also get Windows updates as well. So this lets you know which updates were deployed on specific machines. And again, in this case, there's no updates here. The only thing that I think about this is it's very much where you've got to pull the update or the report down, whereas in Automox it kind of pushes it more towards you and it's a little more proactive. So I love that, the way they've complemented that, by the way. So finally, I'm just going to flip over here into Automox and the main dashboard here. Now I've changed tenants, so I've got a little bit more data in this particular tenant. And as you can see, as well as the managing features that we've looked at here, the fact that you can view the software, I can configure the policies, I can have a look at the groups. You've also got remediation, so recommendations on how we can remediate. You've got the automation here of the amazing worklet catalog. We also have reporting here. Now with the reports, we have an activity log, so I can go in and have a look at that activity log, and you can see that we have a number of filters here, just thinking about it. So you can see you get a nice activity. I can also search the logs here as well. Cool, that I can also export that as a CSV file as well. And you can also expand. You can choose to, do you want to expand all the log details and get really nice kind of detail here. I like that actually. The other thing that you've got in the left hand side here is you've got the filtering features. So I can come in here and I can filter. And of course you can filter for the last 30 days. You can also choose a custom, and typically it's the same as Microsoft. So the other thing I love as well is the needs attention report. So again, at a glance, you can just choose which group or set of devices that you want to monitor, and are there any devices that really do need urgent attention, and you can say, thankfully in this case, the answer is no. You've also got, again, one of my favorite ones is the pre-patch report. So before you start deploying patches, you get that nice pre-patch report. Again, I'm just going to choose all groups here, but I believe we're up to date with patches. So at the moment, there's nothing that needs attention. I love this, the fact that they've color coded as well. So you can see right away what patches are kind of critical as opposed to low. And again, I can export that as a PDF. You can also filter by the specific or the different types of groups and devices that you have there. So as I said, a whole bunch of different reporting. Definitely check those out. And in my opinion, yeah, some of the reporting that we have in Intune is very good. But again, if things like security, you would need to go into have a look at the Defender report. For users, you would need to go into the Entra ID logs. You might need to look in the Microsoft 365 portal. So when it comes to kind of updates in the status of devices, you often have to look in multiple locations. So I love the reporting features here in Automox, and not as much, to be honest, as I love the dashboard. I love the dashboard, the fact that you've just got this at a glance, where are we up to? I love that helicopter overview. So there you have it, Microsoft Intune and Automox, two products that definitely work together, certainly in the MDM and security space. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, give me a big thumbs up. It really does help the channel. And if you have any questions or comments, as always, get those down below. Any links that I've mentioned in the session, I'll stick them down below as well, so if you need more details. All right, that's it for this time. I really appreciate you dropping by. I'll see you next time. Hey, thanks so much for dropping by today. Here's a couple of videos that you may enjoy, and while you're here, go ahead, click on the subscribe button and you won't miss out.